having that good mental state allows you to show up no matter how you feel. This is why I hate the saying, look good, feel good, play good. Well, what about the days when you don't look good or feel good?
Welcome back to the Social Media Sobriety Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Mundo, and joining me on Zoom is Zach Penprase, who is currently a mental coach as well as a former Olympian as a baseball player. Zach, please tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, your story, and what brought you here today.
Yeah, great, man. Thanks for having me on, man. We just met a couple days ago, and it's been really cool getting to know you over the last couple days. And again, like I'm just here to help, especially youth. As I went on my journey, I grew up in Moore Park, California, got traumatized a little bit when I was in middle school, and kind of carried that into my athletic career. And the way it showed up for me was once I hit pro ball, I really became a mental midget because I thought the world was against me. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have the tools. And so that's what I've become, is the guy that I needed back when I was in middle school. And so that's why I do what I do now, mental performance coach, teaching leadership and excellence through the mental skills. That's basically what I do. And I love creating more leaders, more excellent human beings. And I feel like nowadays what drew me to you when you instantly said about the social media thing was it's created such a bigger aspect of mental health, also with the lack of tools, right? I'm 41, you're 23. Me growing up, I kind of had some of it instilled in me, but I still fell short of having those tools. And so now I want to instill some of those tools into the youth.
And I definitely want to go into more of your mental coaching thing, but I'd also love to know if social media kind of came up toward, I guess, the back end or middle of your career. How did that affect you when you're playing? Did you ever look at online and see what people critiquing you, or maybe expand on that a little bit?
It's a great question because when the internet came out, we had a thing called AOL Instant Messenger, also known as AIM. And I was actually one of the first people in the world to probably get bullied online. I stood up for a girl, and actually it was my friend's girlfriend when we were 12. I said, she told me you're kind of being a jerk to her. And he was like, you just have a crush on her, all this stuff. So he basically hired another one of our friends to beat me up. And I remember there was a thing on AIM. It was Zach will die. That was one of the posts. And so, so social media, I was basically one of the first people to ever get bullied in social media. And my parents printed it out, took it to the principal, and we ended up getting him in trouble. He ended up getting a misdemeanor by threatening my life. Everybody at the school kind of thought I was like a snitch, or it wasn't a big deal, all this stuff. And then a couple months later, I don't know how many months later, I couldn't put an actual time on it, Columbine happened. And so everybody knows about Columbine. It was that first school shooting where, it was crazy. And that led to a whole generation of school shootings, right? So, but I was at the beginning of that, and that created this thing in my mind of the world was against me. I told you so. I told you this is a real thing. And so I guess I could say I'm technically one of the first people to ever get bullied online, where those keyboard warriors kind of came alive and really took this internet thing to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and it's scary too, because you mentioned, and we all know this, how much it expanded over since you were bullied in middle school to nowadays, where it's almost any person, any athlete that does something wrong, it's going to be put on blast. So it's definitely something that people just need to take into consideration, that people are human online, and when you kind of dehumanize people, it is very easy to make fun and hurt people, which is really kind of what's up your alley. I guess, do you have any stories of people you've spoken to? And then obviously you don't have to name them or anything, but any instances where this has come into play, where people are seeing things online and they have to come to you for help?
I mean, I just kind of see it every day in the sense that the parents have the energy toward it, the kids have the energy toward it. And when it comes to the parents, especially, they see all these other people committing to schools, their son hasn't committed to a school, but then I think there's a big issue with this commitment day. It's cool to celebrate it, but it creates a lot of comparison, a lot of, oh, well, that kid's doing it. I don't have that yet. I didn't commit to a school till after my senior year. I was very overlooked and not highly recruited out of California. I had some tools, but not to really, probably not to play at the big time schools like UCLA and USC. But maybe, I mean, I don't know. And so I was overlooked, and I had to pay somebody to put my video out there that I recorded on VHS, and they sent it out to their network, and my college coach saw it and wanted to offer me a scholarship. So this whole like commitment day and people posting like I'm proud of you and all this stuff has created this comparison, especially amongst parents. So then it keeps going back to younger times of like, oh well, my 12-year-old needs to be playing all the time to keep up with this. It's all, we're always playing keeping up with the Joneses. I never did any of that. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball, I did karate. In the summer, I went and rode my bike, I played marbles in the streets. I did all those things. And so it's obviously not the same world, but I get a lot of kids coming to me saying, hey, I don't throw as hard as my teammates. I saw that, the top guys in the nation, the top team, they're playing so good and they're ranked number one. So it's come down to these rankings, these comparisons, these commitment days. And so not only the parents coming to me, because the parents will say, hey, he doesn't throw as hard as his teammates, or where he should be. That's a big one. Like, he's not throwing as hard as he should be at his age. And then the kids are like, I'm not as strong or as fast as I should be. Well, what does that even mean, right? And so it's all comes back to this comparing what they see on social media.
And remind me, how old are the people you work with typically? Because I understand this for college, but I mean, if it's youth sports, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I work with anywhere from nine. I kind of make a cutoff at 9 years old because that's kind of the time when they either decide they're kind of committed to getting better mentally, physically, all that stuff. 8, they kind of can't grasp the one-on-one interaction between what I'm describing. So the integration kind of lacks. So if they're mature enough at 9, I'll work with them, but it's between like 10 and 18. So it's like that middle school, high school range. And I see it a lot, especially every time there's a transition, right? Going into middle school and then middle school to high school and then high school to college. Those transitions in life are the biggest times to have support. So I think people lack support in general, but when you're really coming up on those transition times, it's really important to have that support as opposed to seeing other people doing more than you.
No, I definitely agree. And now, Zach, tell me from your perspective, if you have kids that are growing up and playing sports, how much does performing in that sport matter, you think, in the grand scheme of life? Or is sports really more about developing kids to be better people at the next level?
I think performing well actually helps you play longer, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that you want them to do good so they play longer. I think the benefit is playing something for as long as you possibly can. Because my same story every time is I wanted to play soccer in college and professionally, but I took baseball. So baseball took me way farther than soccer. I went to college, I met my wife, I now have 3 kids with her. I'm building a life around that. I went on to play professional baseball. In college, I met some of my best friends. Then I went into pro ball, met some of my best friends there. It developed me into a better man, right? Around anything from leadership to scheduling to dealing with like people that really hate you to dealing with like fans who are always talking trash about you. So dealing with that failure, obviously, when it comes to baseball and any sport, you're always failing, right? So I think when people say, baseball teaches you about life, but if you stop playing baseball at 12, then you have all these regrets and, oh, well, I could have been this, I could have been that, I wish I would have played longer, all this stuff, then, that's where we want people to be able to overcome, not only physically, but mentally, so they can play as long as possible. I think another issue with this runs where kids say, I want to go get my education. My education is more important than my playing my sports, right? But I see too many kids nowadays focus on their education and they go into college and then like 2 or 3 years in, they're like, man, I wish I would have played a couple years longer. And so they end up going and play like an adult league, which is fine. They play softball, but then you always hear these stories about, well, I got hurt or, my coach picked on me or, I just wasn't able to, kind of keep up with everybody else. And so I think it's important for us to help kids develop to become winners, to actually like be excellent in their sport so they can play as long as they can to develop those life skills.
Now, bring this back to a social media question. Do you think social media, because you mentioned all the comparison, is it helping people, making them want to stay in the sport longer, or you think a lot of kids are seeing it as a goal that seems almost unattainable when other kids are throwing 85, 90 miles an hour when they're all like 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, it's super useful, dude. I mean, you bring up a good point again, where it's like if you can stay focused on the usefulness of it, and that's just a simple question that everybody can ask themselves is like, how useful is this for me? If it's not useful, I think you said that, it wasn't useful for you, so you just kind of got off of it, and now you're sober for 5 years. There's some people, whether you're alcoholic or it's the comparison thing, or you're trying to keep up with the perfectionism, especially if you're trying to keep up with other people on there, it can be really draining, really. But if you can find the usefulness in it, I think it's huge. Like there's even apps out there like Torque Sports, which is focused just on getting you recruited and getting to the next level. It has the access to coaches, to NIL deals, to posting your stuff online. Back in the day, I had to send out a physical copy. I had to pay somebody to send out a physical copy to a connection. Now you have this useful tool in your hand. But again, you have to make sure you're using it for good as opposed to just getting lost in what do they call it? Doom scrolling,
Yep.
which I think everybody gets caught in that, right? I stay as focused as I possibly can, but it's like something pops up and the next thing you know, it's 30 minutes has gone by. And so it's really concentrating and becoming aware of how you're using it.
Yeah, and that all started too with like the notifications, instant gratification, and because
Yeah.
everything's at the pocket of our pants, we all have that any buzz or something really gets us to kind of go back to not focusing and things like that. I really want to ask you about individuals, right? If you're a person listening to this who's 10, 18, maybe even college age, what's the best piece of advice you can give someone for their mental in a sport?
Can you say that again?
Like what is the best piece of advice you can give someone who is growing up in this age for their sport?
I would probably go with focus on your skills. Um, and the reason I say that is because growing up, I was good at baseball. I was good at soccer in general. I really didn't take off until I got into college and I developed the skill for stealing bases. I became obsessed with that. That's what I wanted to do once I discovered that. So I didn't work on my power. I didn't work on, anything else other than stealing bases, being a good shortstop, right? And then through that, being a good teammate, being a good leader, all of that stuff. But if I were to focus on that guy's hitting 20 home runs, I want to hit 20 home runs. And then I'm trying to do five things at once. I'm trying to steal bases. I'm trying to hit home runs. I'm trying to do all that. Some people can do all that. Some people, five tool player, it happens, right? But then you also got to know it's called staying within yourself. Stay within yourself. Figure out like what kind of baseball player, what kind of human being you want to be. Focus on those skills and develop those skills, right? I think that's an important thing is find out what you're good at and really master those things. Then you can also find out what you're not really good at and you can start to bring those up as well, becoming this all around person. But I mean, in the end, we all have our highlights. We all have our things that we can do very well that others can't. Other people have things that they can do very well that we can't. So start to develop those individual skills for yourself.
And that kind of throws it back though to the beginning, right? If you're seeing all these other people that are quote unquote better than what you do, right? These people are throwing harder than you. How are you able, or is a kid able to stay within that lane and not succumb to the noise that's all the parents saying what this person should be, all the coaches saying you should be doing this? How do you still stay locked in your lane and focus on your craft?
Good question. I want to kind of bounce it back to you first because I want to ask you in those 5 years of sobriety, how have you honed in your skills? Like how do you focus every day on what you're good at now that you don't have the comparison of the social media? What is it for you that's allowed you to get into that development of your own skills?
The biggest thing for me was always not really caring what other people think. As I was going up through high school, I think even things as simple as what I dressed in. was influenced by social media and what was around. And I was really living this life of trying to check boxes for other people and say, hey, I'm doing this so I can look good in my status per se. And now the person I become is somebody who is willing to just go out and live my life without the thought of anyone else. I think a great example, and I mentioned this in my last episode, one of my favorite pastimes is line dancing. And when I'm out there, it's not like I'm thinking of how this person's recording me on the side. I'm just going out there to have a good time because I don't really worry about what other people think. And that is a much more powerful thing than it seems, because when you do that, it unlocks exactly who you are and it makes you the best person that you can be. Not what society's telling you to be, but what you yourself can be.
So just checking out of social media has allowed you to let go of that worry of what other people think of you.
Yes, yes, and
And
that speaks volumes.
it does. And that's also something that I was kind of just born with a little bit. So like that goes to another point of like, what are some things that you are born with, right? Like what are some of those skills that you already know you have, and really maximizing those things. And then like you said, if you're still worried about what people are thinking of you, what is it that you can do to kind of let go of that? Is it the not comparing yourself? Is it really just focusing on your skills? Or is it doing some journaling about those thoughts, right? So I would encourage everybody to kind of maybe journal about it, meditate about it, pray about it, talk to themselves about it. I think that's a big thing too, is we feel like we can't talk to ourselves. We can't like discover ourselves from within. Like we have so much judgment from not only ourselves but from others, like you said. But for me, like I really didn't care what people I still really don't care what people think, but it still creeps in from time to time, right? We still want to be liked, to be loved and stuff like that. But like actionable things is like journal about those things, right? A big journaling exercise that I have all my students do is when they come up with this kind of idea of either somebody, their coach kind of thinking that they suck, or somebody else judging them, or even them judging themselves. I have them write about it, and then I actually have them either rip the paper up, crumple it up, throw it in the trash, or they can even light it on fire.
Hmm.
So the actual burning of those thoughts or crumpling up and throwing them away is the exercise of kind of letting them leave your body, and you kind of let that weight go. And so that's another practice. So you have to practice that. Like through your 5 years, you've been practicing not caring what people think. But if you're not practicing anything and you're just expecting not to care anymore because somebody told you not to care, then it's going to take a long time, right? So I think you bring up a great point, but we also need like tools. How are we going to do that? Well, journal about it, pray about it, meditate about it, right? Give your Another thing is like give your old self a hug, like that little kid, that time when you got traumatized. For me, I constantly go back and give my 12-year-old self a hug. Hey man, you were picked on. That must have been hard. I just see it in my mind. And as I even just said that, I actually felt the weight kind of leave my body.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. Thank you for sharing. Now, Zach, I really want to ask you, as somebody who was a pro ball athlete, Olympian, how important is it to be in a good mental state while playing baseball or any sport at the highest level?
It's the most important because you're gonna feel worse. You're gonna feel bad like half the time, right? I mean, even if it's 80-20 where you feel good and 20% you feel bad, you still got to show up. So having that good mental state allows you to show up no matter how you feel. This is why I hate the saying, look good, feel good, play good. Well, what about the days when you don't look good or feel good, right? How are you going to show up? So it's the art of showing up, right? It's like having that awareness of, first of all, how do you feel that day? Well, I don't feel so good. Okay, cool. How are we going to talk to ourselves? What are we going to envision ourselves? How are we going to visualize to bring us to that part of the art of showing up? We talk about baseball and our approach and our plan. Coaches think it's the same thing. It's not. Our approach is how we show up. Our plan is a strategic in the moment plan that we're going to do and execute in that any given moment. But our approach is the idea of how we show up. So if my idea is being a good leader, being a good teammate, being reliable shortstop, being a good leadoff hitter and a tough out and competitive, that's how I'm going to show up. Even when I don't feel good, what can I do to get me to that approach?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's a great message, and I mean, take it from somebody who is played ball where a lot of these kids that you're working with would love to be. And I think that speaks volumes. So thank you, Zach, for that. I guess my next question is going to be for the parents, because obviously people are going to go to you and are going to ask for some advice, some guidance, some strategy. But parents also play a big part in an athlete's development. What is a piece of advice do you have for parents to help a kid through this process?
The number one advice is let them guide. Let your athletes guide the conversation. Let them guide the motivation, the inspiration. Let them guide it, right? And parents will always argue with me and say, well, they're only 12, like they don't know what's best for them. And my question is always, well, this is your first time being a parent, so how do you know what's best for them as well? And that goes for me too, right? Like I don't even act like I know what's best for my kids outside of like little things. Like I think brushing your teeth, it will help your teeth from falling out, right? Like eating some meals is good, drinking a lot of water is good. But outside of that, it's like when my daughter is like, "Hey, I want to play this game." All right, cool, let's try it out. Hey, I don't want to do anything today. Okay, well, fine. What do you want to do? Well, I want to just sit here and veg. Okay. It's not easy as parents because we think we know what's best. So I would say take yourself out of the equation and say, let them guide. And that especially goes with the conversation in competition, before, during, after, right? If before they just want to put on their headphones, listen to some music and get into the groove, great. That's not the time to say, hey, make sure you keep your hands back like you worked in the cage. And, like that's not the time to say that. In the game's not the time to be blurting from the stands, hey, pay attention. I told you to pay attention today, right? And then after, that's not the time to say, oh, you could have made an adjustment here. What happened on that pitch, right? You can either say nothing or you can say simple things like, hey, how was it today? Right? Not how did you do or what were you thinking in that moment? What do you think you can work on? That's not the time to say that. That's the time to just sit there and be the person they need at that moment. You're the dad, the mom, the uncle, whoever it is, that's just there with their presence, supplying a space for them to actually figure things out on their own.
Yeah.
The best thing my dad ever did for me was like say nothing, right? We argued on the field because he was my coach, but after the game, nothing unless I was like, hey, dad, what'd you see? Hey, dad, can I see that video you took of me? Yeah, sure. Even when I was watching the video, he didn't say anything unless I asked him. Then he gave me his input, right? So he let me guide the conversation, which is huge. I think parents just need to step out. And it's not even about, I think people say like, oh, they're just living through their kids. I don't even think it's that. I think that they just want to help. They love their kids. They want to see them do good. So they think that saying things and guiding them and coaching them is the best way when it's really not.
Yeah, I think that was very powerful. I even go back to that first point you said about how it's parents also their first time being a parent. So maybe sometimes they don't necessarily know everything better. I think that's powerful. I would love to ask more of a personal question. I know your kids are a little bit younger, but what kind of sports do you see your kids being involved with if they're ready? And how, as a parent, are you going to help them become better athletes and better people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now my kids are 7, 5, and 3. Well, they're about to be 8, 6, and 4. And so I've gone with putting them in just trying things out. But I know that there's a couple sports that I wanted them in for discipline, respect, and just showing up as better people. So the first thing I always put my kids in is some kind of martial arts. I think that that's a huge thing. That was a huge thing for me. I started when I was 5, got my black belt when I was 8. But even things from like being disciplined with taking your shoes off when you come in the house, right? Like little things like the respect, the honor, understanding like the respect for elders and like your master, right? It's like, it's those kind of things that are developed at a young age. They understand those things. And then I just try like random things out. Say, hey, I play with them in the backyard or in the house. We start playing basketball. Hey, do you want to try this out seriously? Nah, this is just cool here. I don't want to play this seriously. All right, cool. You want to go in the backyard and throw a softball? Yeah, sure. Oh, can we try this out? Yeah. So you put them in softball. Then you put them in soccer. And if they like it, you keep going. Right. And so, but I think the most important part for me is making them take breaks. Like my daughter, it's her 3rd year playing softball, first time pitching. I coached her this year. And for me, as a family, we needed this summer as like a reset. We needed this summer to figure our life out. We're making a big move. We're making the next chapter. And so if I were to sign up for All Stars and have 6, 7 tournaments that we were going to play in this summer, that wasn't the right move for our family in general. And whether she likes it or not, I have to lead my family the way that I know I can lead my family. So there comes times when you have to make the decision, and then there's come times where like, oh, you want to play All Stars this year? Great, we can do that. Let's try it out, right? So there's times to go for it. There's times also to like know what's best for your family and go with that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I guess kind of one final wrap up question as we're getting down to 30-minute mark. Do you have the best piece of advice any coach has shared with you, and how did that affect your career and now maybe your teaching nowadays?
Best piece of advice that a coach gave to me. Hmm, that's a good question. Best piece of advice that a coach gave to me.
Or really anyone and any mentor of a different stature?
Yeah, I mean I don't know if it's like a piece of advice or just like a learning through their actions. Um, and there's multiples, right? From my dad, I learned when he's a dad, say nothing, do nothing, let the athlete guide themselves. From coaches that I've butted heads with, I've learned, don't take it personally, right? And then I've also learned from some of the best managers I've ever played with, where as a coach, I just like to watch my kids play. I don't try to micromanage all of it. I let the kids play. I develop them in practice, and then I just let them play because if I'm still micromanaging and telling them how to do things in the game, no wonder they freeze up because they're still working on things. I want to let them play and help them understand the difference between working and playing. So those are probably three like main concepts that I live by. And then ultimately, some of my mentors have shown me the best thing ever is really learning to lead myself from within first. And then once I can lead myself, then I can help lead others and be part of that leadership crew on any given team, company, whatever it is in life. So that's probably what I would say is a mixture of a lot of things, but some of the best learnings that I've ever learned.
Gotcha. And I got to ask because it's not every day I get a pro baseball slash former Olympian on this channel. Do you have a favorite baseball memory of all time in your playing days?
Um, it's hard to pick one, man. It's
Yeah.
hard to pick one. I mean, honestly, like there's times in Fargo, I played there for 8 years. There's times when they walk a guy in front of me to load the bases in the seventh inning. I swing first pitch and hit a grand slam. There's times when I ran out there with a fanny pack giveaway because they gave me a fanny pack giveaway night. There's times when I showed up as a celebrity as, bobblehead night, Zach Penprase bobblehead night. Then there's the times in Bulgaria when, we're playing a game and then we go into a river and we're hanging out in a river as Team Israel, dominating Bulgaria, and that whole journey to the Olympics after being retired for 4 years, having a kid at home, and then I would probably say, through talking this out, probably one of my favorite moments was when we qualified in Italy. My parents were there, my wife and my daughter, and it was her first birthday. And so probably looking up like I can feel it now is like looking up in the stands after we won that game and it's like we qualified for the Olympics. I'd been retired for 4 years and I didn't even know this was a possibility. I didn't know I didn't want to play in the Olympics ever because I didn't know it was a thing, right? And so I remember looking up in the stands and being like, this is so cool. And I just cried having my parents there. And that was the moment I'd visualized my whole life is like looking over, seeing my loved ones in the stands actually being like feel like I wouldn't say feeling accomplished, but like knowing that I did something cool.
Yeah, and that's a story that you can tell for the rest of your life, your parents and even your daughter and your wife, or how much your daughter remembers of it. But that's really awesome for her to just see. That's my dad out there. That's really really incredible, Zach. Thank you for your time. You have anything else to add before we sign off?
Nah, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for these questions and thanks for doing this work because I think it's important. I know you went sober, but I want to say that there is a balance. I think there's a balance with anything, right? I think some people choose either like do it or don't. I think for the people that are out there that want to find the balance, there is a balance. So just keep working at it. Understand that like it can be useful. It also can be very harmful. So when you become aware of when it's useful, when it's harmful, now you can start finding the balance for yourself. But I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm on there every day. This is part of my business is to be on social media. And then you're the opposite. You're five years sober. And I think it's important that you have this podcast and talk about how we can find the balance to really help everybody mentally because everyone is struggling. Whether you have it or not, it is a struggle these days. So I appreciate what you're doing, man, and keep doing it.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the words. Thank you for the time. And for you listeners, tune in next week for more social media sobriety.